Hello, hello, and welcome. Happy Tuesday afternoon. All right, so if you don't know who we are Defendify. I am Shannon Odgaard. I'm going to pop my video off here just because I don't want it to be super distracting. I am the Senior Cybersecurity Advocate here at Defendify. If you've ever seen some of our previous webinars, you'll know that I cut my teeth in cybersecurity as a real estate paralegal, and I wired $2.1 million to a cyber attacker. So I got a lot of cybersecurity education at the law firm before I even knew what cybersecurity was. But we are your all-in-one cybersecurity platform. Thousands of customers all over the globe trust us with their security. So today we are going to talk about passwords. How many of you love passwords? I'm guessing probably not a lot if you are on this webinar. They're probably one of the more frustrating things. And to start off, let me make sure we're going to reshare. Okay, we're going to start this off and we're going to watch a quick video.
You know, we've been hearing a lot about cybersecurity lately, largely because of what happened to Sony. Companies and individuals are more concerned about the safety and privacy of their information than ever. President Obama has unveiled a number of new proposals this week to crack down on hackers, and he plans to address this in the State of the Union speech on Tuesday. And it's great that the government is working on this, but the truth of the matter is we need to do a better job of protecting ourselves. You know, the most popular password in the United States is password 123. And as long as that's the case, we're vulnerable. So today we sent a camera out on a Hollywood Boulevard to help people by asking them to tell us their password. And this is how that went.
We're talking about cybersecurity today and how safe people's passwords are. What is one of your online passwords currently?
It is my dog's name and the year I graduated from high school.
Oh, what kind of dog do you have?
I have a Chihuahua Papillon.
And what's its name?
Jameson.
Jameson. And where'd you go to school?
I went to school back in Greensburg, Pennsylvania.
What school?
Hempfield Area Senior High School.
Oh, when did you graduate?
In 2009.
Oh, great.
It's like my cat's name and then just like a random number.
Okay.
But
Have you had this cat for a while?
yeah, she's my childhood pet.
Aw. And what's her name?
Her name is Jolie.
Jolie. So like a password of yours would be Jolie and then a number.
Yeah.
Like number 1?
Like my birthday,
Oh, when is your birthday?
June 12th,
Oh, nice. And what year were you born?
95.
Oh, great. So Jolie, 6, 12,
9.
95.
Yes.
Got it.
So you mean to give my password right now? No, I cannot do that.
But we all want to know what it is so we can tell you if it's strong or not.
Oh my goodness. Let me think. Okay, one is Tel Aviv. Yeah. 468, and then Israel. It's only 3, but it's for me it's strong enough.
Ireland, 1, 2, 3, 4. Gemma, 1, 2, 3. Spelled Gemma.
Well, most of them are Italian.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, so
like what's a good Italian password?
my grandma's name,
What's your grandma's name?
Maria.
Maria. So Maria is your password?
Oh yeah, now you know my password. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, the important thing is they learned a terrible lesson.
So hopefully nobody in your organization has to learn this easy way. So we've been using passwords forever. So we got the most common one that people think of, even when we're joking around about like being let in, is always open sesame. But even beyond that, thousands of years later, keeping with SpongeBob, we have, ciphers and the Rosetta Stone. And we've always been trying to keep things protected or encoded so that people can't get access or get the information. This is one of my personal favorite ones, the Marx Brothers and you can't come in unless you say swordfish. So it's always a fun little skit. I decided not to play that one, but a few little nerd jokes in there. So just to kind of talk about risk and contextualize it for you, I want everybody to pull up a browser window. You can pull up the browser of your choice, whatever it is that you normally use. Head over to defendify.com/scan. And this will have a little bit of information about your email address, a little bit about your company. I'm not so worried about that, but I want you to see what your actual dark web password exposure is for your company email address. Not only will it give you how many dark web stolen password scan hits you have, but it will also show you for your entire domain. Now, I'm not going to have a screenshot of what the results look like. So if you do not go to the window and follow along and put your information in, you're not going to kind of see what that preview looks like. I did that intentionally because it makes it a little bit more real when you actually see how many company records you have available on the dark web, so that immediately we can kind of throw away that myth that this doesn't apply to me, or we do a really good job of keeping our information safe, and I'm sure you do, but a lot of this stuff is probably outside of your control. So go ahead and throw email address in there, defendify.com/scan, and this will show you what your company dark web exposure is. Is anybody shocked by how many company records they have? If you want, you can throw it in just to the host and panelists, not to everybody, but if you have an alarming amount of company records available on the dark web, go ahead and throw that number in the chat just so I can get an idea. I don't see this on my end, so I don't know how many hits you have, but that's kind of more for your knowledge. So if anybody's shocked by the number that they have, go ahead and throw that in the chat. If you have 0 hits for your company domain, I would probably bet that you've set it up recently or you have changed it recently. So I would also say go back and pull the old one too. All right, so now that everybody kind of has an idea of what their dark web password exposure is for their organization, then we're going to move on now. So how does data end up on the dark web? There's a number of different ways. Phishing is definitely a very common way that information ends up on the dark web. What is the dark web actually? So while I was looking at this, I saw a Google search that said, get to darkweb.com, which I thought was very entertaining, because the dark web is not a place that you can get to with Google Chrome or Internet Explorer or whatever search engine you just used, browser you just used to find your personal exposure and your company records. The World Wide Web, as we know it, is kind of the surface web. That's the part of the internet you can access using a search engine. It's indexed, so that's where we're doing a lot of our work there. They estimate, this is from Experian, about 4% of the content on the internet is on the World Wide Web, the surface web, accessible and indexed by those browsers. The deep web, although it sounds kind of scary, the name is actually scarier than it really is. The deep web is really more, it's not really exactly accessible by surface web crawlers or search engines. So it usually requires some type of username or password or login to be able to access the information that's on the deep web. So it's, one layer removed from that top level. Then we get into, the dark web, which most people think of as illegal activity. All the really dirty, scary stuff goes on down there. But there are a lot of legitimate reasons to use the dark web. You're not going to get there with your Google Chrome or Internet Explorer browsers. People that are surfing on the dark web or conducting activity there have to use specific browsers in order to access that type of content and those types of websites. So you won't accidentally stumble in there if you've never been. If you haven't, I wouldn't bother. But there are some legitimate uses. I've talked to organizations where they have journalists that are using the dark web to protect their identity and keep themselves kind of sheltered, share information. A lot of cybersecurity professionals use it. But of course, there are the types of illicit activities that go on there. There's a lot of marketplace type sites like a underground Amazon. There are forums where you can find all the different types of items that you might need, whether they're popularly now fake vaccination cards or identification or passports, and then of course guns, drugs, and other types of things like that. But also one of the most important commodities that's being traded on the dark web is our data. So it can get there in a lot of different ways. Some of the most common ones you'll see, like if you have, depending on your email service, or maybe you have some antivirus or credit monitoring, you might get emails that say that your information was involved in a breach, or you have a compromise that's available on the dark web. So some of us will ignore those completely. Other people will go in and update their LinkedIn password just because that was the one that was breached. It's very difficult for developers to keep all of these websites and databases safe. It's very, like, there are software vulnerabilities, as we've seen and heard over the last year or so. There's a human error side of things, so there can be a very simple misconfiguration where an entire database is public internet facing and people can go scrape it. There are actual attacks that go in and compromise that database that holds all of the usernames and passwords. Sometimes these attackers will even exploit vulnerabilities in websites or applications, and then they kind of try to move around laterally to discover other types of credentials, get to the databases of usernames and passwords, or get onto local machines and get into like Active Directory, for example. And then there are other types of social engineering and ways that information ends up on the dark web, such as watering hole attacks, where the attackers will inject malware into the code of a legitimate website, and that is capturing credentials every time you're going and logging into that website. So there's a lot of different ways that data ends up on the dark web. You've probably experienced some of these in the past, and data on the dark web is extremely value. So just to give you kind of idea of how valuable your data is worth on the dark web, if you are selling a social security number, you can fetch a couple dollars for that. Any type of login, they fetch about $1 a piece. Financial logins, because this is where we start to get into the more valuable accounts. You can see it can go anywhere from $20 to $200. A lot of it depends on how much money is accessible through the account. Credit card companies have been doing an amazing job of stopping fraud as it's occurring, so those aren't as valuable anymore. This changes all the time, but the more information that goes along with that credit card, then the more valuable it is. But at the top of the charts, we always see medical records just because there's so much valuable data in there. So we've got a couple of little funnies to kind of keep a dark topic very, very light. So what are you doing on the dark web here? I forgot my password, so I'm looking it up. Those of you who are in IT roles probably, have a little eye roll about how many times you have to reset users' passwords, because passwords are hard. So different types of attacks that we are going to talk about today, and why these passwords are so valuable and they're being circulated on the dark web. So we have different attacks like dictionary attacks, social engineering, brute force attacks, phishing, malware, and malware can include things like keyloggers or screen scrapers that are capturing every single keystroke that you make. That one we're not going to go into detail about. It's pretty simple. They deliver the malware and it's capturing all that information. Then we're going to talk about spidering, as well as just flat out guessing. And that's where we're going to start. So attackers will start off with the most common passwords. And what you see here, I think, really highlights our shortcuts that we take as humans when it comes to passwords. So we've got everything from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up through 7, 8, 9, because complexity and length requirements. Password, QWERTY, repeating numbers we see a lot, ABC 1, 2, 3, and then single dictionary words. So these are, year after year, the most common passwords that are used. And unfortunately, I talk to people all the time and they are still using these passwords regularly. I love you, let me in, all those different types of very simple passwords. Here's some information about what poor password health or poor password hygiene looks like. So these are the things that attackers know that we as humans, trying to keep everything as simple and painless as possible, these are the shortcuts that we might take when it comes to passwords. So common patterns, a lot of these are based on their location on the keyboard. We've even seen things like 1QA, just kind of going down in a diagonal, and then over like 2WS all the way across the keyboard. We might see like a 1-character change when you're forced to update. So LinkedIn has a breach. You've got password sunshine 123. exclamation point. Then you might go in and change it to password 1234 or, password 125. So we make those like one sequential number increases. So we go from, or we make like one sequential change. Our password right now might be spring 2022. And then in 90 days, when we're forced to reset it, we go to summer 2022. So we use these single dictionary words, very simple number. We increase that number. We do a lot of repeating characters, special character substitutions. So we might change the A in our password to the @ sign, or my sunshine 123, I might change the last E to a 3. So these are very common poor password habits that the attackers know that we're using, along with those most overused frequent passwords. So the attackers actually have automated tools that they are using in order to compromise our accounts. These tools allow them to try thousands and thousands of combinations in seconds. There are tools such as Mimikatz, Cain and Abel, John the Ripper, Hashcat, Hydra, Medusa, all these different types of automated tools. You can see in the screenshot here on the right, it shows you how many tries they're able to do, like about 14,000 tries per minute. So they're starting off with trying to gain access to our accounts by using the common passwords that a lot of people use, and then they're also incorporating in our little poor password habits, and they're changing, the going up one number and doing all the different permutations and combinations of those poor password habits. And the attackers and researchers wanted to see how long it took for passwords to be cracked. So this is a little chart that shows you the number of characters down the left-hand side. Across the top of the screen is the complexity. So in response to these very simple passwords, we've had to add bring it up to 8 characters, and we have to add a capital letter, and we have to add a special character. We have to have a number in there. So the complicating complexity requirements are usually something that's forcing people to change their passwords. But you can see the shorter the password is, the easier it can be cracked. So as we're starting to really see, length beats out complexity all day long. So if you go down to, let's say, 15 characters, if it's a combination of upper and lowercase, special characters, symbols, numbers, it can take 2 trillion years, even with those automated tools, to crack the password. So the longer the password is, the more secure it is. You can't use beef stew, for example, as a password because it isn't strong enough. So everything is headed is length. In order to be out of that, big danger zone here in this grid, passwords need to be over 12 characters long. Then we start to get into little situations like this.
Username?
dvmartin@gmail.com.
Password?
Okay.
That's incorrect. Do you want to try again?
Yeah, sure.
That's incorrect again.
It was definitely 5 asterisks.
I've sent you a link. You can reset your password from there.
Okay.
You can't use a password you previously used.
Brilliant.
Please enter a new password.
Password?
Too weak.
Rock.
Still too weak.
Diamond, hard granite, man punching.
That password is too strong.
Man punching.
Your password needs to contain at least one number.
7 men punching each other.
It needs to contain at least one special character.
7 men punching each other?
Not special enough.
7 men punching each other.
No.
7 men punching each other. Olé!
Your password contains too many digits.
I'll cut the olé.
No, it contains too few Spanish references.
7 Spanish men punching each other.
Please choose a security question.
How many Spanish men are
You have to choose from the following options. So, mother's maiden name.
Harris.
No, your mother was married before.
What?
Your father's nickname.
Dad?
I hadn't finished. Your father's nickname for your divorced mother's maiden name.
Can't answer any of these questions.
What's your favourite noise?
Oh.
It needs to contain at least one number.
12.
And one Spanish reference.
12 Spains.
Okay, your password's been reset. Do you want to set up a touch ID? Beep.
Was that it?
No.
Why did you beep?
Why did you touch me? Now enter your new password.
7 Spaniard.
That's incorrect. Do you want to try again?
So all of those human shortcuts highlighted in one video. So I'll just uppercase the first character, and then you need a number. So I'll put a 1 at the end, and then you need a non-alphanumeric. So we put the exclamation point on the end. So along those same lines of guessing is they'll take those, common words, the dictionary attacks where they're trying, monkey and dragon and password and all the other numbers or words that you would see in the dictionary. And then they'll also guess using information that you share on social media. So this is an example of spidering. They'll take those common behaviors that we exhibit when it comes to passwords. Now, I want you to think of passwords, and please do not put this one in the chat, but think about the passwords that you've historically used in your life. Maybe this was before you learned a lot about security or it progressed. I know I was of the Sunshine 123 camp in the past, but if you think about that password that you use for everything, chances are it probably contains some meaningful information for you. So very common examples of this are, your own name or your children's name. Pets are always very popular, or your significant other might be your last name or your maiden name. And then we combine that with some date or number that is of significance or has meaning to us. So it might be our own birthday or our birth year, as we saw in that, late night ask you password on the street. A lot of it was my animal's name and then my birth year, my animal's name and the year I graduated high school. So anniversaries, different formats of our own birthdays, other meaningful numbers like our childhood house street number or our old landline phone number, our social security number. A lot of people use that, the last 4 digits of their social, as a PIN or on the end of a password. And then other things that have meaning to us, such as our hobbies, our favorite sports teams, vacation spots. I saw a password list of an organization right in Boston, and a lot of their passwords were, Patriots 1 exclamation point, Red Sox 2004. So we definitely like to tie those sports teams and other things of meaning into us. A lot of this information is also shared on social media. So if an attacker goes to your social media profile, and believe me, they spend this much time doing their research and preparing. They might see that, last June you shared a post saying, oh, happy birthday to my baby boy, Caden. I can't believe it was 18 years ago that I brought you home from the hospital. And then they know on the date that you posted it, what your kid's name is, what his birthday would be. And then they can try all of those different slight change permutations that we talked about earlier. So we're giving away a lot of information that could hint at our possible passwords, as well as our security questions. I see, especially at the start of the pandemic, where everyone was going a little crazy and squirrely at home, and they were spending a lot more time on social media. They were doing all of these get to know you type surveys, and they were sharing their first car. A lot of people have where they grew up and where they went to high school, so very easy to find mascots that are common security question answers. You can see where they grew up and Google some towns around them that have hospitals to be able to guess like what city they might have been born in, all of those security question answers. So just a friendly reminder to be conscious of what type of information you're putting out there on social media, and don't put these meaningful things into our passwords. Because speaking of those automated tools that attackers have, they can go in and try all of those different variations, combining a dictionary attack and that spidering concept of, taking the different bits that they've gathered about you. So let's say we figure out, that, your name is Jim, you were born on, May 14th, 1974. You've got a son named Randy and a daughter named Donna and a dog named Bodie, and the last 4 digits of your phone number are 6821. So they might take all of that information, plug it into their automated tools, and try every single different permutation and combination of that data in order to try to crack your password. This one makes me giggle a little bit, especially because I've been fostering puppies lately. So you can name her whatever you'd like, but be sure it's something you can remember because you're going to use it as a security question answer for the rest of your life. Another way that attackers are compromising our credentials is through phishing emails. So you might receive an email that somebody has shared a document with you through Microsoft SharePoint. You go to preview the documents through the link in the email, and it will take you to a site that looks like it would be a Microsoft login, but it's not. And then on the back side of this is an attacker that is capturing everything that you are entering into this spoofed web page that looks like exactly where you would expect to go. So maybe that's FedEx or a bank notification that you'll get in an email, or we see a lot of spoofs around Microsoft, G Suite, very common services that a lot of organizations are using, Slack, Teams, those different communication and messaging apps. So very common services. They'll craft an email, take you to a web page with all the correct branding and logos and icons, but it's not the actual page. And they're collecting your username and password on the back side of that. Here's another example of some social engineering.
1. Spoof his number so it looks like he's calling from inside the company, and then call tech support.
Hello, you there? Hello?
Hi, this is Ken. How may I help you?
I was wondering if you can take a look at a website I'm trying to get to. It's for a big customer thing I'm working on for Monday, and I can't seem to get to the website from my computer.
Sure. What's the website? I'll see if I can get to it.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate the help. I mean, it could be a stupid thing. I'm really stuck with computers, but so it's www.survey. That's SURVEY -pro.com.
Yeah, I got a prompt to open. I just clicked open, and I'm at the site now.
Here's what the IT guy doesn't realize. By clicking that link, he's just given David full access to his computer.
Whoa, okay, that's weird. I just hit it and it works. It seems like it's working fine now. Awesome. I don't know what you did, man, but I really appreciate the help.
Hey, no problem. That was easy.
That was it?
We're on his computer right now.
You were able to take over this guy's computer within, I would say, like under 2 minutes.
Under 2 minutes, yeah. Under 2 minutes, took over his entire computer, and think of it as not just his computer, but it's pretty much the downfall of the entire company.
In this case, the company was paying David to hack them and see if their employees would fall for it. They did. To show you this demo, we agreed not to use the company's name. Kennedy hacks to protect. He's part of a growing number of hackers using this skill for good.
That is an example of open source intelligence gathering. And then he uses the information to spoof tech support, gets control of the, sees everything that the guy is doing on his screen, and then from there can capture all of the login details on the backside. Another way that attackers are getting our information is through database breaches. So they'll collect these massive database and third-party breaches. This is where you get that notification that your username and password has been compromised. Here are some different examples of breach names. Some of them might be familiar: LinkedIn, Adobe, Dropbox, MyFitnessPal. So these are hitting the headlines all the time. When they're able to compromise just one database, or it's just left public facing, they're able to get all of those usernames and passwords. If you look at these, this is a list of the largest breaches that have occurred. In that right-hand column there is the information stolen. In every single one of them, it's email and password, email and password, email and password. The most recent, I love that every single time a new breach occurs, it's the largest breach out on the dark web, right? I think they're up to 8.4 billion passwords in a RockU 2021 combo list. So not only do we have these individual companies that are having their databases accessed and exfiltrated, but also the attackers will take all of those past breaches that have occurred. So they'll take LinkedIn, and then when Adobe happens, they combine them together, and that becomes collection list number 1. And then after Dropbox, they roll them all together in another list, and that's collection list number 2. Everybody was very shocked when they came out with a combo list of 1.4 billion passwords. Now we're up to 1.4 billion. So they just keep rolling them and rolling them and rolling them into these larger lists. When we get notifications about these third-party or database breaches, generally what we end up doing is going into our LinkedIn account and we'll change our password, hopefully not just going up one number, but we'll change it to a new password. But what we don't realize is that most of the time we are using that password across other sites. And that's why the attackers go after these types of databases, and that's why they are so incredibly valuable to them. Got another fun little comic here. I once stole a password this big. We got some fishtails. So where we get into trouble here is that the attackers are going onto the dark web and they're getting these lists. So even if you think, oh my gosh, I haven't logged into my MySpace account in decades, they know that the other human behavior that we exhibit a lot around passwords is password recycling. Let's say we come up with this, nice, long, strong 12-character password that we can remember, and it meets all of the complexity requirements. We recycle that across multiple accounts. So when that Dropbox breach occurs, the attackers will take that entire list. They'll see that I use shanna@company.com for my email address, and my password is sunshine123. Dropbox or MySpace or MyFitnessPal, that might not necessarily be a valuable account to them, but they know that if you are like a majority of the people out there on the planet, 73% of online accounts are guarded by duplicated passwords. So we're doing a lot of password recycling. While great for the earth, very bad for passwords. So they start taking that username and password combination of shanna@company.com and sunshine123, and they start brute forcing it and stuffing it into other logins that they're trying to gain access to. So they might try your Microsoft account or a Google account or QuickBooks or an industry-specific type of software or SaaS application that they suspect you might log into based on your email, or other types of information that might be shared. They could combine this password recycling problem with some open source intelligence gathering. I jump on your LinkedIn page, I look at who has been hired recently, and I see that Alexis just started in your marketing department, and then I go over to her Instagram account and I see a selfie that she took in your office, and she's very proud of her first day work outfit, wanted to share it with her her friends, and hashtag new job, hashtag first day. I can search for any of those types of things on a lot of social media platforms. And then over her shoulder, I might be able to see, her computer screen with all the little icons across the bottom and go, oh, interesting. Okay, so they use Slack. So I might try to log into your Slack account, see what type of valuable information I could find in there. So that password recycling is where we get into a lot of problems. Once they get that password, whether through a phishing email or a database breach or whatever way they're getting the access to that, they're going in and trying to get access to all of your other more valuable accounts. So password recycling is really where we see a lot of that trouble. And this is another funny video here.
Hey babe, what's the password for the cable bill?
Rollerblade King 22, capital K.
Okay. What about the phone bill?
It's the entire alphabet backwards. ZYX.
I got it. What about electric?
Shrimp.
Lobster? It didn't work.
Try all seafood.
The words all seafood or like different seafoods?
No, just work your way through the ocean and,
What?
Forget all your passwords. Bill Pay on the TD Bank mobile app keeps all your bills in one place.
So even if you're trying to go in and create long, strong Rollerblade King 21 passwords that are unique for every single account, you can see pretty quickly how that's going to become extremely frustrating. So the best possible option here is to deploy a tool that can help you to create long, strong, randomized, unique passwords for all of the sites and applications that you log into and store them securely. So I had actually seen a statistic that said on average, small businesses, we're talking 500 employees or less, use about 20 software as a service or cloud applications. So expecting yourself or your employees to remember over 20 unique long passwords without using some type of naming convention for the passwords that's like Facebook Spring Bookshelf 2022 exclamation point or something like that, which as soon as attackers get one, if they can figure out, going back to all those little cipher suites and Rosetta Stones, if they can figure out what your naming convention is, go up 5 letters and that's how it translates, then you're still essentially giving them the keys to the kingdom. So best thing that you can do is to use a password management tool. If you take one thing as a challenge leaving this webinar, I would strongly recommend that you implement this in your personal life. And if you have the power, the budget, and the ability to implement this in your work life as well, then I would strongly encourage that you get set up with a password management solution, especially with the digital transformation that has occurred over the last few years. Many organizations are utilizing cloud applications at an astronomical rate compared to before. So the security kind of switches a little bit, but if you think about it, you're essentially just guarding those accounts with all of that sensitive data that may be accessed from anywhere now, and it's just protected with a password that may or may not follow all those poor password habits and could possibly be recycled across all of your work accounts as well as personal accounts. So huge urge and push to get people to implement password management solutions so that employees aren't just left to come up with sunshine 123 exclamation point on their own. One of the things that I started on my soapbox about this year in January is using 2022 instead of setting one of those crazy New Year's resolutions that we're not going to follow. I mean, here we are in the end of April. So if you've already given up on yours, I would invite you to switch and kind of set, not to get all frou-frou, but like an intention for 2022 where you do a digital detox. Get set up with a password manager, and today go in and change your password for your email account and any financial accounts immediately to something random that looks like a toddler got a hold of your keyboard and mowed on it for 10 minutes. And then from there, as you come across your new accounts that are using Sunshine 123, you can go into your password management app, click the little dice symbol or the randomizer and update each password as you come across that login. Maybe it's social media and then some of your online shopping or your travel and loyalty reward accounts, and update those one by one with unique random long strong passwords. So digital detox challenge, start small today, email and financial accounts, get a password manager. There are tons of different options available. Really just comes down to what you want as far as features and functionality. Do you want your whole family to get set up with one? Yes, if you have a family. And then if you're implementing one at work, a lot of times those commercial or business accounts also come with a free personal as well. So please encourage you to look into that. You could do a comparison chart. There are plenty of resources out there that will show you and compare the different features. A lot of people also ask about the password managers like the keychain on your iPhone, as well as the ones that save your password in the browser. I do not recommend these because they're, first of all, some of them, you can go right into your settings and see all of your clear text passwords that are saved in the browser. The browsers are getting better about the security of these password managers, but there's still no authentication that is required. You don't have to, prove that it's you logging in. The other flip side of it is I had a friend of mine whose son ordered about $400 worth of items on Amazon because her browser saved her Amazon password. So it has no way of knowing if it's you, if you use your computer for both personal and work related activity, or family members are using it, or what if it just, you accidentally set it down on a table and someone runs off with it. If you're still signed in to your operating system, then the attackers are able to access all of those accounts. So there is no additional authentication mechanism. The other thing is those are awfully browser specific as well. So one of the advantages of an actual password manager is, that you can put in another form of authentication. It can go from your mobile phone, let's say is an iPhone, but then you're working on a PC. You're changing, you've got maybe Chrome as one browser and then you've got Safari as the other. So an actual standalone password manager is capable of filling in your passwords automatically on both. It works the same way and you get the same kind of ease of use and functionality, but I would encourage you to stay away from those browser-based password managers. And then a lot of people ask about, the actual password manager itself and security and say, well, if I'm putting all of my eggs in one basket, I'm sure you can see where that's going. What happens if my password manager gets compromised? And the first thing I would say is set yourself up with multi-factor authentication on that password manager. Because yes, it does hold the keys to a lot of very important kingdoms in there. I'm sure you're familiar in some context or another with multi-factor authentication. A lot of people, if you're not using it actively every single day, most of the time people encounter this if they try to log into their bank account from a new device. They might be prompted to enter a code that they receive in a text message. So multi-factor authentication is usually a combination of something that you know, which is your username and password, and then something that you have or something that you are. So we've got some examples here. Something that you have is, physically located with you. So it's not somebody over in, Italy that's trying to log in as you. Common methods of multi-factor authentication are a push notification saying, is this you trying to sign in from this device? SMS is text message based. There are authenticator apps that have a rolling code that changes usually about every 30 seconds or so that you access on your cell phone. There are hardware tokens, little USBs or little keys that you can press a button on and it will give you the changing code, very similar to the authenticator app, or like a YubiKey or some type of hardware token. And then there's also the biometric side of things, which is something that you are. So it might be a fingerprint scan, a retina scan, a face scan, some type of biometric authentication as that second factor. So combination of something that you know, your username and your password, something that you have or something that you are. So either a code or a notification or a scan. We use multi-factor authentication every single day without even knowing it. Your house and your lock on your door is a perfect example of multi-factor authentication. If you drop your key in the parking lot of Target, if somebody has the key, but they don't know where you live, it's not going to do them any good. Or if they come to your house and the door is locked and they know where you live, but they don't have your key, they're not going to be able to gain access to your house. So we've been using it for a long time in different contexts. But extremely, extremely important to turn on multi-factor authentication on your password manager, and then any cloud account or any account that contains sensitive information. Most organizations and most vendors are very good at providing multi-factor authentication. If you are working with a company that does not provide it, I highly encourage you to request it, because the more people that request they enable multi-factor, then the more reason they have to put it in place. We also look at vendors if they do not provide multi-factor authentication. We even have it in part of our policy that we will not do business with them. So obviously that's a personal choice based on the needs of your business, but security is extremely important, especially with all of the cloud applications that we're logging into. So MFA, all the things. Yes, you'll get a little bit of groans about it. It'll be a minor inconvenience that is predictable every single day. You know exactly when it's going to occur, and it's a very brief inconvenience that everybody, I promise, will get used to. So using that password recycling example from before, if they compromise the Dropbox database and get that list of passwords and they start trying to plug that into your Microsoft or your QuickBooks or your other accounts, then what they might get instead here is this push notification, and they generally will just move on and stop trying to attack that account. Another thing that we're seeing a lot now is something called push bombing, where they're just giving you like approve request after approve request and just hitting you, multiple times a day or a bunch of times in a row, hoping that maybe that annoyance will get you to just click the button yes, and then you'll get the access. So speaking of password recycling.
So the combination is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the stupidest combination I ever heard in my life. That's the kind of thing an idiot would have on his luggage. Thank you, Your Highness. Well, did it work? Where's the key? It worked, sir. We have the combination. Great. What's the combination? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. That's amazing. I've got the same combination on my luggage.
Any Spaceballs fans in here? Hopefully. And one of the things I hear a lot with people looking to implement multi-factor authentication is they say, all right, well, this will stop, all of the different password type attacks. Well, no, there are generally complicated ways around some of those forms of multi-factor authentication. Some of them are a little bit more secure than others, but the most important thing is just turning on multi-factor authentication. If the application or the website that you are getting set up with multi-factor only supports SMS, it is better than nothing at all. Can you put in a request for something better or different? Absolutely. Can attackers go through all the trouble of doing SIM swapping or any other way to bypass multi-factor? Sure, but it's still going to stop a majority of the attacks in their tracks. And just going back to basics of cybersecurity, no single intervention is enough to prevent harm. So thinking of it like layers of Swiss cheese all on top of each other, we want to make sure that we have multiple solutions in place to safeguard the data in those cloud applications and accounts. So a little funny here, cybersecurity is one of our top priorities, and then a plane flying by with your password. Although, kudos to the length and complexity of that password. So looking at ways to protect your organization under that, multiple cheese layers, defense in depth type strategy. First thing, of course, is doing ongoing dark web compromised credential monitoring or stolen password scanning. So again, if you did not jump on the bandwagon earlier to find out if your organization has compromised credentials, there's the website again down at the bottom of that page. So you want to see how many hits your email or your entire company domain has and how recent your last exposure was. Was it, a couple weeks ago, a couple months ago, a couple years ago? Remembering that it is impossible to keep yourself completely safe against these credentials being compromised. Database breaches happen all the time. It is completely outside of your control. You've entrusted this other organization with protecting, your keys to get in. Multi-factor does help on all of those sites, but we kind of have to operate under the assumption that all of these passwords are probably going to be compromised at some point or another. So the best thing that we can do is make them unique, turn on multi-factor, and do ongoing regular scanning so we know when one of those passwords is compromised. If Slack had a breach tomorrow, sorry Slack, we'd want to know about it right away so that you can have your staff go in and change all of their Slack passwords. Hopefully you already have multi-factor turned on. and then it's only that contained application or website that has been compromised, and we've got other protections that are in place as well. But knowing is half the battle. Knowing, in a timely manner also certainly helps. Also supporting that with training for employees. So if you're looking at rolling out a password manager, forcing multi-factor authentication because your cyber insurance company has told you that it's now a requirement to get a policy, you're going to get a little bit of pushback from employees. It's a little bit of a wrench in their morning routine and their logins, but explaining why it's so important and backing that initiative up with awareness of how that problem can get bad, what they can do, why we create unique passwords in little micro learning training bursts that are engaging and to help them understand the business need behind it, other than our insurance company told us to. And that will go a long way as far as buy-in and less groaning and higher adoption rates. Also staying up to date on those breaches, so knowing if a database has been compromised, knowing about different vulnerabilities that may be exploited in order to give those attackers access to those credentials. So staying up to date. We do offer threat alerts free through our Defendify Essentials package. If you're not currently a Defendify user, you can sign up for those notifications and you'll get twice a week. We'll group together all the different types of threats that are coming out in the landscape and give them to you in a bite-sized little morsel. And then another leading way that credentials are compromised is through those phishing emails that say, your SharePoint document is ready to be viewed, and then you go to that Microsoft page. So training and testing employees on recognizing and responding to those phishing emails as they're coming out will go a long way towards creating that strong cyber culture, having employees that are reporting those credential theft emails as they're coming in, and just having that kind of prairie dog effect where people are popping their heads up and going, hey, did you also get this email? This doesn't look right. Did you see this? And reporting those and not clicking on the links. And you'll also want to have these types of password requirements reflected in your acceptable use, or here we call it technology and data use policy. So having, from an HR standpoint, around not sharing passwords, what the complexity requirement needs to be. If you're using a, let's say password manager like LastPass or Dashlane or Keeper, making sure that employees are storing all of those passwords and creating the, randomizer to make passwords that meet that complexity or length requirement. And then worst case scenario, if we do spill the milk and something bad does happen, an employee is, being a human and caught off guard on a Monday morning and not under-caffeinated under a deadline, and they click on one of those links, they compromise those credentials, having active monitoring that is pulling in all of that threat intelligence, all of those logs, being able to recognize when suspicious activity, because that username, password, and 2FA code is the keys to all of the kingdom. So making sure that your email, any, contact databases, anywhere that sensitive information is stored is being monitored for unauthorized access. And then again, if we spill the milk, we can cry a little bit about it, but we don't need to throw away the whole cow. So have an incident response plan in place. Go through these types of exercises with your cyber insurance provider. Who do we call? Who's responsible for which aspect of this? Trying to help employees recognize those threats when they're coming in and having a clear plan in place if something bad does happen. So we have a great one about accepting that our password will be hacked, courage to frequently change it, and the wisdom to come up with a better randomized one. So we've got 12-step verification. Just to wrap up here, if you have any questions, open it up that you can throw them in the chat or the Q&A. But always just a good general reminder that cybersecurity is not just a project that we do once. It's an ongoing posture. It requires, continuous analysis and improvement. It's something that we're always going to be working on. And if you're not familiar with Defendify, we do a whole bunch of stuff. We have 13 modules all in one platform, a lot of automation, try to make your life easier, check off the boxes for compliance, and just let you focus on what you really should be focusing on. And all of these different types of modules and defense mechanisms, they all have to be working together, like illustrated by the gears. One turns the next one. It's not just one standalone solution. So if you'd like to learn more about us, we've got tons of information on our website. Happy to show you, our award-winning all-in-one cybersecurity platform. But in my last couple of minutes, I have one of my favorite cybersecurity videos out on the internet that I want to share with you. And we'll open it up if you have any questions. Go ahead and pop them in that chat and Q&A.
There once was a kid whose passwords laid across all sites. They were the same. A criminal then found their fame by taking that data to go.
Soon may a criminal come to steal your pictures and data and run. One day when the crime is done, they'll steal your account and go.
The kid then noticed strange behavior. There had been a login failure. Reused password was their traitor. It was already pwned.
Soon may a criminal come to steal your pictures and data and run. One day when the crime is done, they'll steal your account and go.
Now our friend did quickly learn their lesson. Don't reuse passwords. Turn on two-step and store them in a password manager encrypted wherever they go.
Soon may a criminal come to steal your pictures and data and run. One day when the crime is done, they'll steal your account and go.
Hopefully you do not end up with that stuck in your head for the rest of the day like I inevitably do. So I encourage you to check out your dark web exposure for your organization. And my challenge to you, please feel free to send me a message on LinkedIn that you have accepted the challenge. Get set up with a password manager if you don't already have one, personal, professional, especially personal, because we recycle things everywhere. Get set up with that password manager, start little by little, account by account as you're logging into them, and update all of those passwords to unique, random, button bashy type ones, and all of those critical accounts that if you would not want an attacker to get a hold of the information in there, email, financial, social media, whatever it might be, turn on multi-factor authentication. So please, I hope that challenge will be accepted, that you'll focus on a digital detox for the rest of 2022 and have some good, strong password hygiene so we can keep that information out of the dark web and being used against us. Till next time, stay safe.